Today, we're going to be taking a look at 3 of the largest FNAF Tower Defense games on Roblox and comparing them to see once and for all which is the best on the platform. The 3 games I've chosen are FNAF Tower Defense, Five Nights TD, and Fazbear World TD. All 3 games are Five Nights at Freddy's Tower Defense games, so how different could they possibly be? I want to look at multiple factors of these games, how much content they have and replayability, the various units,
how do their towers
differentiate
units
and
towers,
and things like that. The first thing we need to discuss is the release dates for these 3 games. FNAF Tower Defense was created on March 6, 2023. Five Nights TD was January 2nd, 2024. And finally, Fazbear World TD is the newest at July 18th, 2024. With it being the most recently released, Fazbear World is going to be the underdog here. The other 2 games have had a little bit longer to get updates and new features out, so we'll have to keep that in mind while we're comparing all 3 of them. So, first things first, let's take a look at the 3 lobbies, starting with FNAF Tower Defense, which recently changed their hub, at least from the last time I played it. It used to be more of a typical tower defense lobby, but now it looks a lot more simplified, almost too simple, I'd say. You can enter the cars to go to specific maps, but I don't think you could tell which car goes where unless you enter it, which is a little strange unless that's a bug on my end. There also seems to be a separate lobby for the UCN area, which is a little better than the main hub. It's more detailed, there's more things to do and explore, even a bot to knock you across the map, and you can enter various games from the arcade machines. I do think it was a little hectic and all over the place in the past, but I think if they went somewhere in the middle it would be perfect. Next, let's take a look at Five Nights TD's lobby. Their lobby is what I think everyone would expect when entering a tower defense game. Everything has its own section and is clearly and boldly labeled, so you know what is where. It has a lot going on, but it somehow doesn't feel cluttered or messy. Also, jumping in the ball pit to enter an event is a really cool idea. Finally, let's look at the newest game, Fazbear World Tower Defense. The hub here is a lot more simple compared to the previous game, but still well labeled and spacious. I am a huge fan of the setting in here as well. It looks like a pizzeria similar to the one from the FNAF movie. Like I said in the beginning, this is the newest game, so it's not going to have as many of the features as the others, so the lobby isn't going to have as much either, but they did leave it open enough to when they do add these features in more modes and different concepts, they'll have plenty of room to implement them. Also, kind of related to the lobby, but kind of not. I just didn't know really where else to put this. I think the game has by far some of the best music out of all of them. Just hop into the game and listen to the music. I'm not even playing at this point. Next, let's take a look at features and content. What can we actually do in these tower defense games besides, tower defense? Let's go back to the first game, FNAF Tower Defense. This game has over 20 different maps from all across the FNAF titles. I really like how they take locations or even events from FNAF's history and turn them into maps. They're not just a FNAF themed room, if that makes sense. They also have a bunch of event maps that are still playable, which I think is a really cool addition. At least the Halloween event maps are still playable, so I assume they're always just going to be up. They have the basic difficulties you'd expect, easy all the way to nightmare. Then when you get in the game, you could choose even more difficulties like plushie, rockstar, withered, or nightmare, and of course lobby sizes for up to 8 players. Five Nights TD probably has the most content and features out of all of them though. You have the basic tower defense modes, which are well organized into 8 games with 6 nights each, and then you do have 2 difficulties, easy and nightmare. If you do select nightmare, you have to select one buff/debuff at the start to make your unit stronger, but it also helps the enemies as well. You can also enchant your units with buffs to give them more damage, longer range, or crazy buffs like the spring lock. There are quests, the prize corner, trading, and of course the versus arena, where you can battle it out with other players from a 1v1 to 4v4, which also has a ranked option. There are guilds you could join as well in the game, and there are giant boss raid battles. If you end up losing, you can get jump scared as well, which I didn't really realize at first and got scared in a tower defense game. Sad. Oh, and in endless mode, I'm probably leaving some stuff out, but this game just has so many different features it's hard to name them all without just forgetting something. Right now in Fazbear World Tower Defense, there isn't too much you can do. However, the story mode is pretty detailed. You can play with up to 4 players, and there are 9 different maps to choose from, all with 5 nights in each, which should keep you busy for a while. And if you've beaten all of those, there is an infinite mode in the game as well. But if we're talking about a tower defense game, we have to talk about the towers themselves. FNAF Tower Defense has a lot of different unique towers, mostly the humans like security security guard, chef, manager, but they also have interesting animatronics as well, like the Foxy Fighter and Incinerator. In this game, you don't roll for units, you could just buy them outright with in-game currency, which personally, I'm a huge fan of. There aren't too many different towers in this game, but they make up for it by having a bunch of different skins for the towers. Also, personally, one of my favorite features in this game is when you upgrade the towers, their appearance changes and gets more and more detailed as you upgrade further. It actually feels like you're upgrading them, and it's not just a ring around their base. This game also has a unique feature where your towers can summon their own units. Gregory and the mechanic both summon units from the end to sprint into enemies and do damage, and these units upgrade with their towers. Five Nights TD has the most towers out of any of the games, constantly releasing new ones I still haven't even seen yet. The summoning system in this game works how you'd expect the tower defense unit summoning to work. You use in-game currency to summon up to 50 towers, and each event has its own currency and towers as well. All the towers range from common to secret and even nightmare rarities. The units range from straight out of the FNAF games like the nightmares, or there are units specific to the events like the artillery puppet and archer Freddius. The towers are detailed and have this cartoony vibe to them, which fits the game's aesthetic perfectly. The new units for the space event are probably some of my favorites in the game. They aren't afraid of getting a little weird with their towers and their game, which I think is a huge plus. They're also not trapped in a box to stay with just one specific part of the FNAF franchise. There are so many different attack animations between the towers, they almost all feel unique. Like each individual tower has its own different attack, which is kind of crazy considering how many different towers there are. In Fazbear World, you acquire new units by rolling them in a gumball machine, which I think is just very fitting to the game and atmosphere they're going for. Since it is a FNAF World-based tower defense game, Fazbear World TD's towers are all themed after FNAF World characters. So at the moment, it doesn't seem like they're going to branch out from that genre or that game specifically. However, the towers themselves are all animated very well. The models are super detailed and they look amazing. They all seem to have their own personality with the way they're animated. Right now, the game doesn't have a huge variety of towers to get, but quality over quantity is always a plus. The towers attack animations all vary as well, from bites and punches to spring lock and Shadow Bonnie's portal attack. This game also has a similar tower to FNAF Tower Defense's Gregory or mechanic units with Puppet. That will summon shadow animatronics to march down the lane and help clear out enemies. Speaking of enemies, now we have to move on over to the enemies and bosses of each game. FNAF Tower Defense's enemies range from all over the FNAF universe, from, of course, Freddy Fazbear, the Fun Times, Mr. Hippo, and a withered Bonnie riding a cake for some reason. The models look really clean and accurate to the games and are all animated well too. This game has a bunch of mini bosses that have a ton of HP, like the Rockstars, Music Man, Lefty, and Scrap Baby. The main bosses are pretty menacing as well. They tower over all the other units and have an insane amount of HP. My personal favorite boss was the MXES from Security Breach. Trying to beat it and unlock Gregory was probably one of the hardest tower defense bosses I've ever played against. As you'd expect, Five Nights TD has as many bosses and enemies as it has towers. There are all kinds of different enemies you can encounter, like zombified, withered, and haunted animatronics, to name a few. The bosses are really unique though. There are unique enemies with voice lines, not to mention they're giant. You have Cadaver Endo, Boatswain Foxy, Mangled Bonnie, Dismembered Freddy. The different boss designs are probably some of my favorite parts of this game. Seeing how many different wild, crazy concepts the devs could come up with is truly peak, as they say. The enemies in Fazbear World Tower Defense took me by surprise. When the game came out, it was only endos in different sizes and speeds and shapes, which they still use and have, of course. But now they have leaves, trees, rock golems. I'm not even sure where these creatures come from. I don't think I've seen them in FNAF World, so I do appreciate the unique enemy designs, and my favorite part about them is the way they fall over when you kill them. It's animated so smoothly and cartoony, I just love it. It does have bosses from FNAF World like the Auto Chipper, Bouncer, Graveweed, and more, and it does utilize the Endo enemy a lot with different variants here and there, but they're slowly but surely adding more and more unique enemies over time. If they add more enemies like in World 1, I'm definitely going to be on board. So after researching and playing all three games extensively, it looks like Five Nights TD easily has the most content out of all of them, the most replayability, the most uniqueness in general, and they don't look like they're slowing down on updates anytime soon. It definitely deserves the player base it has, if not more. This doesn't mean the other two games are bad by any means. All three games are good and different enough in their own ways to warrant people playing all of them. The OG FNAF Tower Defense, the massive Five Nights TD, or the underdog Fazbear World Tower Defense. Which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.